I thought I'd start off, firstly, thanking Barry for this tremendous organisation, getting this all together. We've communicated dozens of times, he and I, with this, that and the other, and he was always so friendly and so nice, and said, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. I said, that's great. Good. John Phillips, Alan Paul Green, Anthony Ratcliffe, Douglas Ratcliffe, and Roger Stroud. I never knew that they were Old Templars. You know, we knew them as singers, but I had no idea in those days. The non-Templars who we all know were Harry Abbott, Reginald Goodchild, and John Brewer. We all know. We got on with all of them, didn't we? They were awfully nice people. Yeah. George Dixon I got to know pretty well because he was working for the BBC and he invited me to do several things for the BBC. I turned out in things for the schools, in various functions. He was a very nice bloke, got to know him very well. So, now then.
We never had you on Listen with Mother.
Listen with Mother, no, I wasn't quite Listen with Mother. 10 years or so after Walford's appointments, the number of old choristers was becoming considerable, and they clung to the place, and more particularly to the doctor. That's what Robin said this morning, didn't he, from the altar. It's quite true. Those whose voices as men had become serviceable helped in the choir on cantata Sundays, and took part in the half-early concerts which were given in one of the temple halls. In these activities, the Templars' Union was evolved. Alfred Dixon was one of its protagonists, and still its upholder in these days when he lost both Doctor and the Temple Church, which will tell his story in those words. The half-yearly concerts, which were given by the past and present choristers by permission of the Treasurer and Masters of the Bench, were started by Doctor in 1908, a long time ago, and continued until 1914. The Old Boys' Union began at about the same time. Something of a record of the Templars' Union is given in a magazine, The Templar, which we all know about, which started as a quarterly issue and became subsequently an annual production run entirely by the Old Boys. Do you know who the first editor of the Templar was? John Harford, which I didn't know. It's very interesting, and the Doctor was there at every meeting. They met every month, and they had a service, and Walford Davis was always there. He gave lectures, helped them, and then he loved the Templars Union. And so that's how it all started. And when Dr. Ball turned up at the temple a few years later, 1919, he was one of the assistant organists, like Stokowski was. And he listened to this, and he took over nearly everything that Walford Davis did. The choir was bloody good in those days. And GTB just slipped in very gently and was just as good. And that's the great thing about it. We all know GTB, what a great organist he was, but he was capable of doing everything. He used to kind of improvise. When there was a hole somewhere, he just sat down and wrote it, and some of his pieces, which became very famous afterwards, were kind of put into music afterwards they played, because he was capable of saying, yeah, what key? No, he just changed the key, just whatever he wanted. He was brilliant. Walford Davis was the same. So he was in this great tradition. The difference between Walford Davis and Thomas and GTB just slipped into each other without anybody really understanding that there was a difference. And GTB was so clever that he knew exactly, he took everything from Walford Davis's thing, which I think was so good. And that's why when we got to know David, GTB was recommended that Mr. G.T. Ball in 1919 became an assistant organist, and he started a series of short organ recitals, which I didn't know, which started every Thursday at 1:30 in the afternoon. I don't think that happened in our time, did it? He never gave any recital.
He went to Birmingham.
He was in Birmingham, yeah. Birmingham I know very well, because he invited me later when I was as a baritone, to go up with him, and I sang a concert in Birmingham with him. He was such a marvellous pianist, he was so great. Yeah, that was great fun and games. He was very nice. In 1923 he became Walford Davis' assistant. Why? Because Walford Davis was called to the University of Wales to begin their chief musical assistant. Of course, Wales is a long way away, and that was very difficult. But he, as I said, he remained president of the TU until almost until he died. GTP took it over. Yeah. Anyway, WD as Walford Davis, he was using the choruses of the Templar for his broadcast, because he became a very famous broadcaster, which was before my time. I wasn't even born then when he was there. But he was very well known. He became very well known in the BBC corner, and he gave a program about music every week. He was on every week. He played the piano and he talked about music. And the people wrote in and said, I must always listen to Mr. Walford Davis on Tuesday evenings, and I go to bed with him. That was one of the things that they said, which they wrote. I thought very amusing. And he was very well known in those days. He knew everybody. He knew them all. Sir Hubert Paris was a great friend of his. And what did Paris do? He made a composition and he called it Jerusalem. And he gave it to Walford Davis. And Walford Davis said, oh, great. So he went to Kerwin's. And what happened to Jerusalem? We all know about that, don't we?
Yeah.
And Walford Davis was instrumental in giving it to a publisher, so it became known. There's the things which one doesn't realize. He knew everybody. He knew Paris, and he knew Elgar, because he worked with the Three Choirs Festival down there with Elgar and everybody. He was really involved. He knew all the great names. He even met Sibelius, which I thought was rather good. When Sibelius came over to conduct one of his symphonies. And when you read about Sir Walford Davis, he was really phenomenal. So that we're such a great organisation is not really very surprising, is it? Anyway, as you all know, as I thought Robin said this morning from the altar, what happened in the war, when after the bloody bombs came on the 10th of April, May in 1941, Captain Dixon, that was George's brother, he conducted these services with the men who were involved, and they had these services throughout the whole war. And then, of course, after the war, we were all involved, weren't we? And I'd like to finish with a nice kind of thing which might surprise you all. I've read through I've collected all our correspondence since goodness knows when, since it started. I've got them all, and I've read them all through before I came here today, which was quite, because there were 179 of them, which was quite hard. But it was very interesting because many of you contributed, kind of letters and follow on and follow on and follow on everything. It's very interesting how lively the Templars Union has been, which I think is marvellous. It's unique as far as I know. I don't know of any other choir which has this affection for a community who were all knitted together like we were, I think. So I'm going to finish with a little demonstration which Anton Matthews sent in 1921. Just listen.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for asking me to come and do something. I've got lots of nice spectacles, which are a little bit awkward. But of course, this hall gives me many unusual memories. But I remember the first recital. I tried to play some pieces to try to demonstrate the various stops, including the sustainer. I forgot the name of the piece. It was a piece which was supposed to represent the Star of Bethlehem, and a high note representing the star goes all the way through. Right, I began this piece, and after about 3 bars, of course, this star was sounding. Comptons thought it was a cipher, And they rushed into the organ, suddenly found the pipe which was sounding, pulled it out. So my star went out, and immediately I pressed another flute, which brought another star. To Compton's surprise, another pipe was sounding. They rushed across, pulled that pipe up. I put another star on. I put on 5 stars. But the last one sounded, well, I suppose a little more like a meteorite or something. Instead of a flute, it was a reed of some kind. There were no more flutes left. Anyway, that was one of the opening recitals. I don't want to waste your time telling these stories, but I know a whole lot of very interesting stories of, particularly of Walford, of people like Parry, Elgar, Stanford, Walter Parrott, all these people at that time. I'd rather do this than play to you. No. Well, I don't know the organ. I don't know the well, I don't. Well, I'll perhaps tell one other silly story. That's when I first went to the Royal College of Music. So I was only 13, and I got a scholarship there, extraordinary at 13. Anyway, the first lesson was what was called music class. It was taken in a room on the ground floor, taken by Sir Walter Parrott. And he used to call out people's names. This was the first lesson I've ever had at the Royal College. And he was calling out their names. We had to say Adsum. He said, in a very strong Oxford accent. Is Mr. Dove here this morning? Adsum. Mr. Finch here this morning? Adsum. Mr. Crow here this morning? Adsum. Oh, quite an aviary here this morning. Voice from the back. Yes, Mr. Parrott.
Amen.